Before dawn, the red keep held its breath. Wind came up from the bay and washed the stone with a salt chill, and in the hush before the kitchens woke and the courtyards filled, the fortress felt less like a seat of power than a creature drowsing in a cave. Lamps guttered along galleries where guards posted at even distances gripped spears and tried not to shiver. The tapestries along the Tower of the Hand hung heavy, their woven lions dulled to brown in the wash of a single banked fire. Tywin Lannister stirred from the chair, not from sleep but from a patience he had measured out like ink. He had not lain down. He did not intend to until the day's shape was cut and set. His hands were clean and dry. He had washed them twice after the wedding feast, though there was no stain to remove, and the cuffs of his dark doublet were square and even. He touched the buckles as he stood, each to the same tightness he preferred for travel. He did not prefer to travel. He preferred to send other men on roads. But he wore readiness the way other men wore rings, and it fit him well. On the table by the hearth lay a comb, 3 quills, 2 knives of unequal quality, a black stone to sharpen them, and a stack of letters weighted with a coin so heavy it might as well have been a knuckle. The coin bore his father's head and the old lion rampant on the other side, a minting done in a better year for his house. He picked it up and turned it, feeling the milled edge, as if the texture could remind his fingers of time. The night had been loud where court was gathered and whispered where truth lived. Even now he could bring up each sound. The bright scrape of a knife against a trencher when a king signaled for more pie. The unlovely laugh of some knight bent too much over his wine. The collective intake of breath when the boy's hands found his throat and the skin turned a shade it should not turn. A hall is an instrument. Boards, rafters, stones, and Tywin could hear how the notes had changed. The shrill cries had come after, when names flew like gnats, but those he had set aside. Names came with heat, facts came with cooling. He set the coin down and reached for the first letter. He did not write to soothe himself. He wrote because the realm responded to ink as dogs do to a whistle. The wax lay softened by the coals and he pressed a clean device into it. No lion rampant. The seal he used when speaking not as a roaring father to his enemies but as hand to the realm. 8-pointed star with a small raised dot at center. A thing Pycelle had smirked at once and had not smirked at again. My lord, he wrote, the Riverlands require a hand both steady and alert. Walder is old and stubborn. Even a bolt of good cloth grows brittle with age. Send men of file and rank to every ford from the Tumblestone to the Blue Fork. The Iron Throne recognizes the Frey's service at the Twins. It will recognize it longer if they hold the crossings unmolested. In return, grain will move east as agreed. He did not sign his name. He pressed the seal again and set the wax to cool near a platter of apples he had not touched. His eyes felt dry, a familiar dryness like dust in a ledger. He had watched his grandson die. The thought sat in the room with the gold and the iron, unremarked. He had looked at the boy's body and thought first of ships. A tap came at the door. It was the sort of tap he permitted, soft enough to be polite, firm enough to be audible through good wood. He told them to come in, and Kevin entered with his hair combed and his face drawn taut in the way of a man who accepts that the day will not be forgiving. Kevin had slept, or at least had closed his eyes somewhere not far from a bed, and he carried that small indulgence like a clerk carries a minor sin. You sent for me, Kevin said. He did not bow much. There was no need. Sit, Tywin said. Eat if you must. Kevin glanced at the apples. I'll eat later. Later there will be no time. Tywin lifted another letter with 2 fingers and scanned the line he'd left. Cersei is in the Queen's chambers with the body. Tommen is with her. The Septons are making their preparations. The Tyrells have retreated to their manse to confer over their loss and over how to fashion advantage from it. They are not ashamed of grief. They are ashamed of waste. That you may set your clock by. Kevin sat, hands clasped. He did not respond as a supplicant would. He and Tywin could speak without flourishes. The boy, Kevin asked after a moment. In the end, did he suffer? Many die badly, Tywin said. We shall not let the realm think its king died from common negligence. They have a taste for stories that keep them in their homes at night. We will give them one. But for us, we will look to the cause. You have men you trust at the kitchens. I set Paxter to watch and to ask. Varys will already have what we need, and he will sell it to us for a promise we will not keep. Tywin's gaze moved to the quills. His hand found one. Before the noon meal, I want to know which hand set the cup near the king's plate and whether any man has fled from the city since the candles guttered. Sansa Stark is gone, Kevin said. The words fell with the weight of their own inevitability. Tywin looked up properly for the first time since Kevin entered. She left the hall? After the king, before the queen began to scream. A fool went with her, the one in motley. The docks have a rumor of a little boat making for the mouths. Then nothing. I have a list of boats who left in the last 2 hours. Kevin's mouth twitched. Half the city is ready to name her killer because she is convenient. The other half because they require one. The Stark girl did not have the wit to poison a cup in open court, Tywin said. But perhaps the one who led her away did. Men who thrive on the margins have a way of knowing where to prick the skin. Send riders to search the coves. Seal the gates in a manner that does not panic the commons. He turned the quill in his hand. Do not seize vessels owned by the Tyrells or by any house whose name begins with gold. There are days to remind allies that they may be enemies. Today is not one. Kevin nodded, absorbing it, lifting a hand to rub the back of his neck where the skin had creased beneath his collar. And Tyrion is in a cell. He will remain in a cell. Tywin set the quill down without writing. The cell was a fact. Sentences were not. The queen will demand blood before the stone beneath her feet cools. She wants to bomb herself with it. But even grief must be made to serve. I saw him as they took him down. Kevin made the words careful, not tender. He was not raving. He asked if you sent your men or the queen's. Tywin did not examine the feeling that moved in his chest. The old rooms in him were locked. I sent the king's. There will be a trial. Public one with order. People trust the shape of a thing when it repeats. The city has watched trials before. They remember the last king's shrinking. They will watch a better sort of shrinking if they must, but we will not play a farce. The Martell Prince will want a place, Kevin said, and he will want to speak of his sister. Better he wants a place than a war. Tywin took up the second letter and began to write to a man in Old Town whose taste for rare oils moved between honest commerce and indulgent treachery, depending on whether the cask went where he said it would. Oberyn is a man whose hunger has learned to walk on elegant feet. If he walks slowly enough, we can line the road with our markers. See that he is invited to sit on the council. See that he is watched where he sits. Set aside some answer for his questions about the mountain. Which answer? The one that admits nothing and promises less, Tywin said. If you cannot manage that, provide the one that makes him believe he has already won and need only wait to be shown proof. Patience curdles in men like him. Kevin's head bent. It was a gesture of assent and of a small prayer that his brother would never test him with a question he could not answer. When Kevin left, the room rebalanced. Tywin drew a ledger closer and flipped to the page where debt sat sandwiched between taxes like bones under meat. The Iron Bank of Bravos had sent 2 letters in a year, each worded with a politeness so specific it bordered on threat. Politeness is useful. Politeness exhausts men who must pretend to be patient. He tapped a number with the tip of a fingernail, small sound, precise, and imagined the shape of a fleet that sailed from Bravos when men who wore pinch-faced masks agreed that money liked to be where men were frightened. A kingdom ought never to owe fear to anyone but itself. The door opened again without a tap. Only 2 men risked that and lived. This one moved like silk on carpet and smiled with his eyes, as if he'd just come from a joke he declined to share. Lord Hand, said Varys. The S of his name turned to thread. He lowered himself into a posture that resembled a bow without being one. What a night! Or is it morning already? It is startling how the two resemble one another when tragedy has worn the hours smooth. The next time you come into this room without announcing yourself, I shall misremember the difference between an unarmed man and a rat, Tywin said. The threat was not loud. It was like the coin on his table, milled finely. Varys folded his hands, obedient in form. I beg your pardon. I came the moment I learned the little ship you requested to be watched had left a particular cove. I found a boy who saw two cloaked figures board, one with hair as bright as a torch though the hood came low. The boat belongs to a man who sometimes belongs to Peter Baelish, and sometimes to men he has not met yet but will, when it profits him. Peter, however, is gone. His ledger in the treasury is gone too, though I imagine that is only temporary. Ledgers tend to find their way back to those who are patient. Men rarely do. You will place men on the roads to Rosby, Duskendale, the Trident crossings, Tywin said. You will also place them on the sea. The girl is bait in several directions. No one will admit to swallowing her because the hook is easier to see when the fish is already hanging upside down. You have something that tastes like the truth about the cup. I have a name, Varys said, and he glanced at the quill as if Tywin might write it with the same ink he used for measures of grain. A woman named Dantos brought the girl to the cove. He owed her a debt called life. He paid it. His mouth formed a connoisseur's little O. He is dead. Men who help for love seldom live long. Dantos wore motley, Tywin said. He moved around the edges of the king's table and no one saw him as a man. They saw him as a thing to be kicked or laughed at. In hall and alley, invisibility is the strongest cloak. Who made him useful? Ah, Varys said, warmth smoothing the syllable to butter. That, my lord, comes at a cost. The cost will be paid in the coin we pay you with, Tywin said. Don't mistake my patience for charity. Name him. Peter Baelish, Varys said, and he smiled as if tasting a bitter herb. Who, as we have noted, is gone. Tywin set the quill down like he would set down a small knife after noting where it would cut next time. He leaned back. The chair creaked quietly. He will go to the Vale. I would, if I were him. There is a lady there who has made herself a widow in hopeful imagination many times. Hope learns to fly where the eyrie perches, and with the Stark girl in hand, he buys both pity and claim. Send a letter to Lord Royce that reminds him of old oaths and the obligations that attend a sky that must be climbed to and not merely walked under. Varys's eyes expressed respect without sincerity. How comforting it must be to see the realm as an orderly board, my lord. The realm is no orderly, Tywin said, but the men who think they can own the disorder can be counted on to follow patterns. Tell me something that is not in a pattern. Varys's hands unfolded and refolded. Pale birds always ready to alight. Oberyn Martell sent for a healer in the night. He is not ill. He is curious. He wishes to know what herbs might make a throat fail itself. The man he sent to fetch the healer did not wear Martell colors. He wore nothing but a vacant expression and fear. A slow breath passed through the room. Not wind, but intention. Do not make him my enemy, Tywin said. Not yet. Do not make him my friend. Friends tell worse lies. And the queen? Varys asked softly. She is keening as if she must prove to herself there was love where there was pride. She has set herself like a sword against her brother. I will speak with her, Tywin said. Pycelle recommends a slow trial, Varys said. Slow trials take on a life of their own. They attract flies. They do not suffer from the truth's impatience. The trial will be neither slow nor quick, Tywin said. It will be exactly as long as it needs to be to loosen the alliances that wish to crack and tighten those that require knotting. Go. Varys went. He closed the door with care, and the latch sounded like a small verdict. Tywin stood with a deliberateness that might have passed for weariness in a man who believed the body ruled the mind. He crossed to the narrow window that looked across a slit of dawn and the black suggestion of the bay. The water took color reluctantly, denying the sky's argument until it could no longer pretend. He let his gaze sit there long enough to empty the residue of someone else's words from his head. He had learned when he was young that his father's eyes went soft when they looked so far. He had trained his own to harden instead. The queen's chambers were a sky of flame set low, all candles and heavy drapes and a smell of something sweet that did not belong in rooms where a body lay. Men moved like thoughts in the outer chamber. Quick, unnecessary, fleeting. A septa in gray murmured, hands folded, while a maid worried at a stain invisible to anyone else. The guard at the inner door wore an expression built from duty and from a small fear that he might be the man who failed to stop a thing no man could stop. Cersei sat near the bier with her hands bluntly clasped in her lap. The candles ringed Joffrey in light, smoothing the petulance left in the face he had gone into death with. Someone had arranged the lips. Someone had failed to wholly erase the stiffness around the eyes. It takes practice to make a child look like a king in death. They had had none. "Father," Cersei said. The word broke. She looked as if she'd been cold and struck and wanted now to be heated and to strike back. "Daughter," he said. He stood at the foot of the bier as if he were a man surveying a ruin no storm should have touched. He did not touch Joffrey's shroud. Tommen, in the next room. He was weeping until he fell asleep, and then he woke thinking he had been a boy, not a king, and then he remembered he is a boy and a king and wept harder. Cersei's mouth tightened. "Where is the dwarf?" "In a cell." Tywin looked at her, saw the place where anger had bitten the skin over the knuckles, saw the places wine had not dried. "He will be tried." "I will not see him tried," Cersei said, fury rising like something that could warm her through if only it burned hard enough. "I will see him torn. He killed my son. He killed my boy with a cup and a smile." He did not," Tywin said. He spoke softly. It cut more. "He is not the sort of man who kills children at a feast. He is the sort of man who kills when cornered and when it will sting, and then he makes a joke to ease his own bile. He did not kill the king." Cersei stared at him as if he had spoken a foreign tongue. "You did not see him." He handed Joffrey the cup. He looked at him as if. "I saw," Tywin said. "I have lived long enough to know that seeing is an art. When you love or hate, you forget how to paint." He stepped closer to the bier and looked down at the boy who had been a blade pointed in every direction by a hand that had not steadied him. "This is a weeping day, but we will not let the shape of it ruin the days that must follow. You will not speak in public. You will not roam the hall like a storm. You will sit and you will be looked at, and you will look back, and you will seem as constant as the stones we stand upon. Tommen will be crowned when the Septons have argued themselves hoarse about whether grief can be postponed by duty. Do you understand me?" Cersei's eyes glimmered like polished stones gone dark at the deep places. "You speak as if we have the luxury of patience. We are mocked. My son is a carcass. My other son sits under the ground with rats. You want me to be quiet. I want you to be obeyed," Tywin said. "A queen who screams finds people eager to be deaf. A queen who whispers and moves men with a finger finds them leaning to hear. Tommen will need a mother who thinks. You can be that. You will be that. And you will trust me to deal with the men who murdered your boy." She looked at him for a long time and he let her look. He did not step into that gaze. He did not flinch from it. In the end, it was not obedience that moved her mouth. It was exhaustion. "Do what you will," she said. "But if you fail me, I will raise the city to find where the rat hides." "Rats like raises," Tywin said. He did not smile. In the next chamber, Tommen slept curled toward a pillow that did not smell like him yet. A kitten of the sort the cook's children fetched from the stable sometimes lay tucked against his chest, a ridiculous, breathing bauble. His hair was fairer than his brother's, his hands rounder. He would never be tall. He might be wise. Wisdom was a short man's height in a tight crowd. Tywin watched the rise and fall of his grandson's small back, and felt the old calculation begin its work because grief must be made to serve or it consumes and leaves nothing useful. He thought of tutors with flat shoes and flatter voices. He thought of a sword put into a hand that did not wish to grasp it and of the sort of man one makes when one is not trying to make a hero. He thought of the Reach and of how their lady vines wound themselves around anything that warmed them. When he returned to his rooms, the bells had begun to speak to the city, not with any message beyond the fact that some bell must be rung lest quiet be mistaken for indifference. He found a note with a wax bead unmarked. He broke it and saw Oberyn Martell's thin, careful hand inviting him to a walk along the serpentine hallway in an hour. No escort, no weapons, because a man is most dangerous when he asks you to make him less so. He used the hour. He sent for Pycelle and made the old man bend in the middle like a reed in a shallow river. He asked what draughts might make a throat seize in a manner that could be mistaken for a fishbone turning mean, and Pycelle quibbled until Tywin asked again, more quietly, and then the old man named 2 herbs and a handful of powders from across the narrow sea. It was not a confession. It was a list. He would have given it to anyone. Tywin did not like men who gave everything to anyone. Oberyn waited in shadow stenciled with the window's lattice. He wore a robe that moved like water, and he smiled like a sword lying on a table that everyone pretends to have forgotten. They walked without touching and without stepping too near the walls, the way men do when they trust their bodies but not what might come out of the walls. "Terrible, terrible," Oberyn said, looking at a window's lead as if it pleased him. "A king dies at his wedding, and everyone remembers the sweetness of the wine because it tastes different when your throat tightens. A man who has thought often about poison speaks often about taste," Tywin said. "Does he?" Oberyn tilted his head and let his eyes slide to Tywin's hand as if nothing under the wrist could be safely ignored. "I speak often of justice when it is me who has a hunger for it, and I have a hunger that has learned to outwait meals." "You sent for a healer in the night," Tywin said.
Ah, Oberyn murmure.
"The eunuch abounds in care. He looks after me like a mother looks after a clever child she fears she will lose in a crowd." He glanced at Tywin's cheek. "But you, Lord Hand, look after us all like a father does when he knows his children need him more than they love him. It is a different art." "You wanted a place on the council," Tywin said. "You shall have it. You wanted a chance to ask me questions. You shall have that. But you will not use my hall to turn an old grief into a fresh knife." "How generous," Oberyn said, "to let me sit and watch you arrange the cutlery when all I want to know is whether you cleaned a blade, once, a long time ago, and put it back in its sheath without anyone seeing. I have brought you no armies. I have brought you the possibility that Dorne does not make itself into an irritation you cannot scratch without bleeding. That is something the Reach will not give you. They will give you flowers and expect their scent to be its own gift. My house has kept this realm from naming its fire's liberty for a long time," Tywin said. "You will sit on the council. We will decide together how the crown will be served, and you will say later in your stiff rooms that you were not afforded enough respect, and I will pretend to be surprised. But you will not set this city afire because a Dornish house nourishes a story. You have no proof. And if you did, you would still have no proof that would serve you as much as power serves you. Sit and wait. Men who wait with grace are rarer than men who fight." Oberyn's smile thinned into something that might have been sincerity if he had been a different man. "There is a boy in a cell. He is clever. He is hated for the wrong reasons. He did not poison his king. He will die for it if the queen has her way. He is your son. I wonder what that will make of you." Tywin did not break step. "It will make of me the same as always. It will make of me someone whose house survives. Because there are days when a house is a man's first child, and every other choice is treason." He paused, and it was a pause that invited a man to step into a trap or to show that he had learned where they lay. "You will attend the trial. You will conduct yourself with the dignity of a prince. You will not harass the mountain in public or in private while he waits for orders. And you will not mistake my steady hand for a weak one." Oberyn's eyes warmed. "Steady hands bleed too, Lord Tywin. They simply hide the cloth better." When he left the prince under an arch where sunlight gathered like spilled grain, Tywin carried the conversation like a weight that did not impede him but that shifted how he would turn next. He felt the day slip into its middle stages. Servants were out, heads down, shoes whispering over rushes newly laid to mask spill and sorrow. A boy in the livery of a minor house went past with a tray of figs held high, and Tywin noticed how he kept a thumb on the tray's edge, sure the fruit would otherwise fall, sure he could keep the world from one small accident. The instinct had a kind of nobility. It was insufficient to the realm. He went to the black cells. Men who served in that dark had a specific look, part pale fear, part pride that they had learned how to be comfortable where others would not. They bowed and unlocked and relocked, and Tywin walked along a corridor that asked men to listen to their own breathing and judge whether they were guilty after all. Tyrion sat on a bench with his legs arranged, as if he were a lord waiting for a carriage. He had no wine, and a bit of bread had gone hard in a corner of the desk bolted to the wall. He looked up and greeted Ned with a mouth that refused at first to put on the expression, and then decided it was easier than finding a new one. "Father," Tyrion said, "have you come to tell me what a grand fool I've been? Or to tell me you never thought I'd be bright enough to think of such a lively trick?" "I have come," Tywin said, "to tell you that you will not speak again in public without thinking first of whether your words may be counted as coin or as disease, and then to tell you what you will do." He did not sit. He set his hand on the desk and felt its grain the way a farmer might stroke a yoke. "You did not do this," Tywin said. "You are not innocent in general, but you are not guilty of this. That is not charity. That is an observation. It will not matter to those who wish to think otherwise. What will matter is what I make matter." Tyrion's mouth twisted. There was bitterness there, but there was also a sort of weariness that surprised and offended Tywin more than rage would have. "And you will make matter that I am a useful son you have kept stored under your chair like a tool you do not use in good rooms. What plan do you have that uses my head?" "I have one that uses your absence," Tywin said. "There will be a trial, and you will lose it, because men prefer to watch a thing they have begun go to its end rather than to admit that their first impulse was wrong. They will crown Tommen before we are done pretending to examine you. You will ask for trial by combat, and you will fail at that, too." "How nice to be told the story before it happens," Tyrion said. He tried to sound sybaritic. Came out like a man who has walked too far in bad boots. "I will ask and I will fail, and then what?" "You will take the black," Tywin said. He let the words fall as if he were placing a small iron pot on a cool stone shelf. "You will go to the wall, and you will live there until snow becomes the only thing you trust. You will drink when you can, though you will drink less. You will speak when you wish, though soon you will wish to speak less. You will write letters that I will not answer. You will never inherit. You will never marry. You will never put my name on a son's mouth. And in return the realm will avoid a civil war in the alleys and in the hearts of men whose favorite sport is to pick sides because it lets them feel tall." Tyrion leaned back slowly. "And you expect me to agree because you are my father and you have set the pieces and the board and named the outcome and always have." "I expect you to agree," Tywin said, "because it is better than dying for a crime you did not commit to satisfy a sister who is not interested in the truth, who is only interested in naming the one she has hated since you took your first breath. I expect you to agree because you are clever and because you can drink in black like you drink in scarlet." "And if I do not agree?" "You will die," Tywin said, "and you will make of your death a small, ugly lesson for men who like stories with awful under them. I am offering you a story with stone in it instead." Tyrion stared at him long enough for the air to lose whatever interest it had in moving. Then he smiled. It was real and tired and edged. "You have such a way with love." "I have a way with survival," Tywin said. He turned toward the door, and this time his hand slipped off the desk without a last touch. At the cell's threshold he paused. "When certain men have stopped thinking themselves bright, I will bring you word. Do not speak again in public. Clean your mouth. The whole realm is watching. If you must be a dwarf, be a silent one." He left his son in the dark because sometimes mercy is a door closed in a draft. Before midday the small council assembled. Men who had had too much to drink the night before found places to sit that would allow them to lean without seeming to lean. Mace Tyrell arrived with a face carefully arranged around injured dignity. Behind his eyes the counting had already begun, as it does for men who cannot see a cask without imagining how many cups it holds. Pycelle's beard had crumbs in it, and he was proud of the crumbs because they suggested a life lived near bread. Varys appeared and disappeared as if passing personally between the walls. Oberyn came, punctual to the minute. Tywin sat in the hand's chair because no one else could. He let silence gather until it was as heavy as a blanket on restive legs. Then he spoke. He spoke of order, and of the king's body lying under the watch of godly men, of the need to crown Tommen before rumor made him into a phantom, of the need to move grain toward the city while men still expected it to arrive, of ships and gates and names. He did not speak of grief except to say, "The people will be permitted to mourn at the sept for the space of a day when the septons say enough. They will not riot. Men who riot will be put to death. The crown will pay the families of any man taken by the watch by mistake. Mistakes will be few." Mace cleared his throat. "My daughter has been gravely wronged," he said with an earnestness that had borrowed its clothing from fatherhood. "She married a king and is made a widow before she is made a queen." "Your daughter will be made a queen," Tywin said, "when she weds Tommen, as we all discussed while the wedding pies were being cut." He looked at Pycelle, whose eyes shone with a dampness that may have been sentiment and may have been the oil he rubbed there when he wished to look soft. "The faith will be delicate about it. We will be delicate and firm. Tommen shall have a wife who will help us keep the peace. The Reach will have a queen who will keep the Reach from thinking itself the realm." Mace flushed but swallowed it. The Tyrells were gardeners who had learned to prune their own fury. Oberyn's voice slid in. "And the dwarf. The accused will be tried," Tywin said. "He will be provided every evidence of fairness. He will be judged, and the realm will accept he judgment because it will have been given shape and set upon stone." "And Sansa Stark?" Varys murmured. "The North remembers. The North also imagines. Imaginations can be cruel to people who live in cities." "She will be found," Tywin said, "or she will be seen where we make it useful to see her, and then the story will be told that makes it less harmful to the realm. Baelish has made a gamble that his pockets can hold a county. If he is wrong, he will be stripped naked in a place where he thought himself warm. If he is right, we will count him useful until the moment he is not." The council broke as councils do, into smaller conversations with eyes peering sideways. The news traveled outward in the mouths of steadier men to less steady ones, and beyond them to cooks and to ne'er-do-wells who learned how to carry a word from one corner of a city to the opposite corner before the day warmed its hands. In the kitchen, a woman told another that the new little king had cried, which was proof he was kind-hearted. And in a whorehouse a boy said he had been paid with a good coin that had a lion on it, which meant nothing except that he would not be beaten again for presenting false pay. Tywin ate a small meal alone because men who ate with others at such times were expected to be coaxed into appetite or out of it, and he had no need to perform that. He chewed bread that had been baked before the bells began, and he drank watered wine. He thought of the Riverlands again, of the Manderley boats and of the Frey's capacity for clumsy menace. He thought of Stark and of Bolton and of the North's habit of wearing its weather in its thoughts. He wrote 2 more letters. When the day had gone beyond its height and godly men had said the right words over the bier, the Queen allowed herself to be seen upon a balcony with her hair braided into a crown. She did not speak. She did not move. She looked down at the city with a gaze that said, "I know your names." The watchers in the streets felt both reassured and irritated, which is the best a city ever feels when it looks at its rulers with honesty. Evening found the air less stiff, as if sorrow had contracted into a hard kernel that could be carried rather than something that soaked the walls. Tywin went to the stables with 2 men and looked at the horses as a general inspects a parade. He did not ride. He let his hand run down one mare's neck and thought, briefly and not uselessly, of the quality of living strength that tolerates a firm touch. He spoke to the master of horse about the guards' mounts and about what oats would cost in 6 weeks if the roads were watched properly. The master of horse told him without telling him that he had removed 2 men who drank on the night watch and replaced them with men who drank only when they came off. When Tywin returned to his rooms, a strip of sunset lay along the far line of the horizon like the rim of a dish. He sat at his table and allowed himself to be still for the span it takes a candle to lean and collect a bead of wax. Then he called for a boy and handed him a letter to be taken to the captain of the Gold Cloaks and another to be taken to the commander of the city gates. He kept one for himself and did not seal it. It was the letter he would write if the trial went wrong in the way he needed it to go wrong for the next thing to go right. He slept briefly, sitting, head tipped like a moment carved in a tomb. In that short sleep there was no dream. When he woke, the city's night had begun its peculiar souled music. Laughter wrapped in cloth, clinking behind shutters, a woman's voice, a man's curse, a stillness where the richer streets lie like knives laid flat. The morning that followed the morning of the bells brought with it a taste of iron before bread. The trial's first hearing was held in a chamber that had been scrubbed until the stones smelled faintly of vinegar. Tywin watched as men performed their roles. The singer who had sung the wrong song for the wrong man, the guards who remembered what they did not see and saw what they wanted to be seen, the maid who cried because it made her feel she belonged to something more important than the washing of linen. He kept his face unchanged. He kept his hands flat. When Tyrion's eyes found him, he did not nod, did not permit any intimacy that might be mistaken for petition. Tommen watched from behind a carved screen with a septon and a lady whose kindness had been trained to think it could cure. He was young enough that his eyes looked for a father in every tall man. He did not find one and drew the only lesson such searching permits. A king must be his own answer. In the corridors afterward, Tywin met Marjorie Tyrell at a place where light came down in an obedient cascade through glass. Little queen in morning colors that made her smoother than usual. Her hair a soft assertion of youth. She curtsied and looked up. She wore sincerity the way a clever girl wears a ribbon that makes you think you gave it to her. "My lord," she said in a voice that was sanded to evenness, "I wish to say to you, not as a queen merely as a woman, how sorry I am." "The realm is always very sorry," Tywin said. He let the cruelty of it sharpen just enough to test her. Her eyes did not flinch. "Good. Testing is only useful if it does not break the toy. You will wed Tommen when the Septon says the time is right. Until then, you will visit the queen and sit with her for an hour each day and not talk of happiness." "I understand," Marjorie said. It was possible that she did. "He is a sweet boy." "He is a king," Tywin said. "Teach him sweetness later. Teach him listening first." She dipped her head and withdrew like a note put back into a music box. That evening Oberyn sent a basket of oranges so rich with scent that the boy who carried them became drunk on it and wandered the wrong corridor. Tywin instructed that to be cut and tasted. They were safe. He sent one back, Peel. With a note that read, "We govern together or we do not govern." He did not sign it. The peel dried on his table into a little helix of brightness and then went dull. The second day of trial was uglier in the way of the second day of anything that pretends to grace. Jests had been made in taverns and had been repeated in alleys, and when Bosch draws breath it likes nothing better than an official place to stand. A singer told a story differently than he had told it the day before because a guard had laughed, and the laugh had sounded like pay. Tywin let the ugliness happen. There is such a thing as inoculation in public life. The city, which had fed itself on worst possibilities when it could not afford bread, began to tire of them. In the Black Cell, a small drama played itself out between a dwarf and his own contempt. Tywin did not watch it. He measured time by letters, not by the beating of someone else's outrage. He sent to the Vale again. He sent to the Riverlands. He sent to Harrenhal and to a man who had once hunted bandits with an enthusiasm that had made him popular with mothers and terrifying to daughters. He summoned Kevin and spoke with him about men and hours and maps. He took Cersei's rage and parried it until she burned less hotly, for no flame, however fierce, can maintain itself without air. On the third day, he let the council fall unexpectedly into private conversation. He sat with a cup he did not drink and listened to Mace speak of the cost of flour as if he had planted wheat with his own hands. He listened to Varys propose that a show of mercy to someone small would serve as proof that there was no appetite for cruelty. He listened to Oberyn say nothing and smile at the far wall as if a lover leaned there. He listened and let listening be a sign of mastery for those with thin eyes. Listening costs less than correction and buys more. Near midnight that night, a message came that a small boat had been sighted where no small boat should be. The men who had sighted it had later discovered that their purses were heavier than they remembered. Tywin dismissed the messenger with a coin and sat very still. He could see the shape now. Peter with Sansa high in the Vale, a window open onto the Ares cold. Lisa Aaron's heart racing like a small bird trying to escape a room where all the windows are painted on. He saw it and loosened his jaw for the first time in a day. Men like Baelish are often most dangerous when they believe themselves already safe. He would write another letter to Royce, warmer and more explicit, and send a man with hands clean enough to be believed. In the Tully lands, men told one another new stories about old murders. In the north, a quiet wind shifted over long snow. Beyond the knife, ships that had thought they were safe looked up from their calm and noticed weather. Tywin imagined it all with the satisfaction of a general who has learned to make the map speak. He went again to see Tyrion before the fourth day began, not because he needed to but because something in the motion of events suggested that those who failed to move of their own accord would be moved by others. He found his son with a look that would have resembled peace if peace knew how to smirk. "Have you come to ask me to confess?" Tyrion said. "I have come to remind you that there is a path," Tywin said. "You will take it. If you do not, you will make of me a man who cannot save his house from his own blood. I refuse that." Tyrion took a breath and let it out as if measuring it to see whether it could be traded. "I will ask for the black," he said. "I will be sent to the wall, and you will sleep better in a fortress of enemies because you did not have to watch your son die. Is there anything else you would like me to perform for you while I am at it? A dance? A witticism to be repeated at dinners that you do not attend? For once," Tywin said, "say nothing memorable." He inclined his head as if to a stranger whose politeness had impressed him. When he had gone, the day revealed itself as one of those days when the weather never quite chooses a position. Clouds gathered. The bay thought about a chop and then smoothed itself again. The city waited and pretended not to, because waiting is humiliating in a place that survives on the illusion of endless movement. In the sept, candles fell and were replaced. In the barracks, a man sharpened his sword because it made him feel as if he had done so to his life. On the dais, before a chamber that smelled now of vinegar atop a base of sweat, Tyrion asked for trial by combat. Tywin allowed his face to become as stone as the walls. Oberyn turned his head the way a man does when he is listening for a bell in another tower. Cersei's mouth tightened, and the corners told the truth. The room breathed in and out, and someone laughed and was hushed. The law permitted it. The realm required it. The hand looked at the Prince of Dorne and saw in him the same yearning he had read in young men who attended their first execution. To feel that the throat that opens is the throat of the whole world. Plans adjust themselves when men behave like their worst stories. The mountain was summoned, and he came, and he showed a human civility in public that made men with softer hands forget that a cultivated field is only a forest made obedient. Tywin measured each step and found the balance. If Oberyn died, Dorne would give him its anger. If the mountain died, the north and the river would watch and see in it a kind of justice, and the Reach would calculate whether the loss lessened their fear. If both lived, the king would be alive yet, and the trial would find its end in exile. In the hours before the combat, the wind shifted and came up from the south carrying the smell of fruit grown in heat. Tywin remembered a summer when his hand had not yet weighed what it did now, and he had been able to believe that reordering the world was simple if one had a long list. And the sense to cross things off. The memory approached and was dismissed. He returned to the ledger. Men went to watch two men agree to let the gods root in their bodies for a verdict. Tywin did not watch. He knew what a spear going in looks like. He knew what it sounds like when a skull must bear what it cannot hold. He knew that the outcome would present itself to him before the echo of the cheer came down the corridor. When Oberyn died with a cry that made men who loved him love him more and men who fear him enough to make it into hate, the city swallowed the sound and made a new one. A collective intake of breath that had in it pity, disgust, relief, hunger, and, most of all, the sound of a thing happening that cannot be unhappened. Tywin closed his eyes for a moment to feel how the shape had altered, and then opened them and sent a message to the Dornish envoy that used the words honor and tragedy, and later. He sent another message, this time to a man who dealt in ships whose names changed at sea. That night he slept for an hour and rose feeling the stiffness of his throat as if he had spoken too much. The city had not rioted. The queen had neither cut her own flesh nor demanded that another's be cut to make a pattern that soothed her. Tommen had learned to hold his head at a height that made the crown look less like a burden and more like a law. The Reach had accepted, for the moment that grief is part of harvest. The veil had not yet answered his letter, and that, too, was an answer he could read. Before dawn again, he sat with a single candle and drew the ink down a page. He wrote to Dorne with the respect due a dangerous future. He wrote to the north with kindness as cold as the snow the letter would never see. He had a plan for how to move the mountain away from court and into a place where men could pretend not to notice what must be done to him to keep war from his master's door. He had a plan for gold cloaks whose loyalty might be bought, and for gold that would be borrowed from a bank that liked to talk of obligation as if it were a prayer. He put his seal to the last and felt a fatigue not of the body but of the part of the mind that carries generations like stones in a sling. He allowed himself a handful of moments in which to consider nothing. He let his eyes rest on the orange peel gone hard, on the comb, on the heavy coin with his father's weak mouth imprinted upon it. A knock came. Kevin entered and stood as if he had been sent a little too quickly and was out of breath with commands he had not yet had time to tame. "The Queen wishes to see you," he said. "She wishes to tell me that a trial was not enough," Tywin said. "Let her tell me. She will have her satisfaction when the dwarf is marched out for judgment, and when he is marched instead to the docks. She will call it treachery if she does not know she has already begun to forgive herself. We will have our bargain." He looked at Kevin and saw in his brother's eyes the thing that had always moved him when nothing else did. A loyalty that was without romance and without deceit. "When this is done," he added almost to himself, "we will see to the faith. The gowns are multiplying. I do not like what men do when they wear a god-like armor." He went to the Queen and heard her say, over and again, that the world had stolen something of hers and that she would see it paid for. He told her things that were true and things that sounded true and will sometimes do more work. And when she was mostly done, he stood and put one hand on her wrist, not to comfort but to confer a kind of command. She did not flinch. She looked up at him, and for a moment he saw the child in the woman, the girl in the Queen, the echo of a promise he had not kept and had, perhaps, never been able to keep. It lasted the span of a swallow. When the day came for Tyrion to be taken from his cell, it came like a routine. Men who locked doors unlocked them, and men who marched marched, and a city that had waited shifted its weight. Tywin stood where he was meant to stand with shoulders in the shape of law. He saw the look on his son's face and turned away as a kindness he would never name. And then the plan that had been written in his hand and in his head met the part of the world where plans go because other men have plans too. The dwarf was not brought to the yard on time. A guard he trusted less than he trusted his habit told him in the voice of a man who has realized he has been living in a house with one wall gone that the prisoner was not in his cell. Tywin did not move. He had learned long ago that where one's face goes, men follow with knives or with loyalty, and he did not intend to lead anyone anywhere by accident. He asked a question that made another man run. He asked a second and sent someone else to stand, to look. He sent a third to lock the gates. He stood. He waited. Varys came to him already sweating and made a bow that would have made a lesser man console him for the effort. "My lord," the spider said, and his hands were empty as a stage when the players should already be on it. "Say it," Tywin said. He thought of all the letters that had left his hand in the last days and of the single letter he had kept back, unsealed. "The imp is gone," Varys said. He did not call him the king's uncle. He did not use any other title. He said the word that men who love cruelty use with relish and men who love truth use when they must. He had help. For a moment Tywin allowed himself the graceful instinct to name the helper and to order a search that would make the city feel flayed. Then he adjusted. He will go to the docks. He will look to flee to a ship already bought. He will be with someone who has the keys to doors men are not meant to open. Close the doors. Burn the ships if you must, but burn them after you have boarded them. Varys flinched in the manner of a man who knows where fire eats most. "And if He does not go to the docks, then he is here," Tywin said. "And if he is here, he is close to one of two things, revenge or forgiveness. He is not a forgiving man." The castle changed its breathing. Guards ran in patterns not worth noticing until now. Servants were stopped and asked questions. Men with clean hands explained that their hands were clean. Tywin went to the Tower of the Hand because there are places that call to men who intend to alter the story that has been made for them. He did not hurry. He made speed without fuss. He did not make himself the man who runs to his death or to his death's postponement. He made himself what he had always been, a man the world arranged itself for. He entered his own solar and found it as he had left it. The comb, the quills, the coin, the orange peel. He looked to the door to his private chambers and saw that it stood a thumb's breadth open. He went to it. Inside, the air held the scent of the cedar chest where he kept winter clothes and the faint hint of the pomade a groom had used on a saddle 3 days ago. The window's lattice carved the light into a grid that fell over the bed and the wall and the chest. He stepped forward, and a voice he had stamped out in his mind 100 times spoke. "I never meant to be a son you couldn't love," Tyrion said from the dark between the wardrobe and the chest. And then, before any answer could form, a second voice came, one that made Tywin understand that even in his house there were corners where the maps were incomplete. "My lord," said another. The accent was slight, the courtesy too exact to be anything but false. He knew it without needing to see the man's face. It was the Sellsword who had stood beside Oberyn like a small shadow and had not blinked when the skull cracked. "This is not a good place to die." Tywin turned in a single measured step and saw both of them. Tyrion with a crossbow cocked in hands that were steadier than he had guessed they could be with that weight. The Sellsword with a knife held in the easy way of a man who is killed for reasons other than fury. He read the room. He read the light. He read the distance to the chair and to the chest and to the door, which stood now fully open because someone else had come through it. He did what he had trained himself to do when a possibility becomes a certainty. He made an assertion of power. He did it not with volume but with shape. He straightened. He found the center of the floor with his stance. And he spoke in a voice that had stopped men more dangerous than sorrow and more foolish than sons. "If you shoot me," Tywin Lannister said, "you will burn the house that could yet keep you from drowning. If you do not, you will go to the wall and you will live. I will not say you will live happily. That is for fools. You will live, and there will be days when living is not a punishment. Choose." Tyrion's mouth trembled not with tears but with a smile he did not want. "You bargain even here," he said. "Even now." "I have never done anything else," Tywin said. For a span of heartbeats no one moved. The wind outside lifted and fell. Somewhere in the keep a woman dropped a dish and the sound did not reach them. The Sellsword took a step sideways into the light, and in that movement Tywin saw the thing that had not been on his maps. How many men with no name would choose a name today? He let his breath out. Fear did not flood him. Old anger came, smelling of Tarbeck halls and of a father who had smiled in the wrong places. He used neither. He used calculation. He did not speak again. He waited to be obeyed because he had been obeyed longer than any of these men had been alive. Tyrion's finger tightened and then did not. He lowered the bow by an inch, and in that inch lives are saved or wasted. His eyes found his father's eyes in the lattice of light and shadow, and something that had been growing in him slowly over years laid down a seed. It was not forgiveness, which is a tree. It was not revenge, which is an axe. It was a seed. It would either crack ground later or rot where it lay. "Go," Tyrion said, not to his father but to the man with the knife. "We are going to be sensible. He says there are days when living is not a punishment. I should like to see one of them." The Sellsword's mouth thinned. "Sensible men die slowly." "My whole life has been slow," Tyrion said. "Let's make a virtue of it." The man's glance flicked to Tywin and away. He went. He went without turning his back, which told Tywin what he needed to know about him if he needed to know it later. The door's edge cut the light as it closed and made a line that moved across the floor and stopped. Tywin waited until he heard the farther door open and a shout go up that would be mistaken for another. Then he looked at his son and let the silence serve a purpose. "You will take the black," he said softly, as if speaking to a horse in a storm. "You will live." Tyrion lifted the crossbow so that the sight rested near his father's heart again, and then he lowered it all the way down and broke its tension with hands that made the task look like a prayer. He set it upon the cedar chest. He did it with a care that made Tywin's throat sting in a manner he would not examine. He stepped backward. He did not bow. He turned and left. Tywin stood alone in his private room with the cedar smell and the orange peel on the other side of a wall, and the knowledge that what might have been myth to others had become, for him, a day's work completed and not completed. He took a long breath that did not shake. He walked to the table. He sat. He took up a quill. He dipped it. He wrote a name at the top of a fresh sheet of parchment, and then he stopped and looked out the window at the light slicing the bay and saw, in the far distance, a ship's white sliver tilt and then right itself. He would need to do more than he had planned. He would need to bend the city and the court and the queen and the prince and the banker and the butcher and the boy king all a degree further than they thought themselves capable of bending. He would need to find in himself an unplayed note. He set the quill down and rose. He went to where the orange peel lay and picked it up and crushed it in his fist and felt the sting of its oil. He washed his hand. He dried it. He turned toward the door and opened it into the day whose shape he had not chosen, and therefore would have to learn to own.